Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in. Try to keep this a little shorter than my first opening announcement there, which you have hopefully had a chance to look at. That one was a little longer because it had some of that more global course orientation navigation stuff to it. I'm going to try to focus a little bit more specifically on Unit 2 here. So I'm recording this on Thursday morning, and so I'm just going to pop us into our due dates here. So our first set of due dates here, so everything in Unit 1 is due, or the main things from Unit 1, due Thursday, so that end of the day, today or Thursday, depending on when you're looking at this. And then, of course, we have a reply component that's due Friday. So Unit 1 is fairly light as far as the workload, because I understand that people are just getting into like having a new course on your plate and figuring out how the course operates and how to click through things and where stuff is and all that sort of stuff. So we don't want a ton of things to do. So basically you're building your portfolio web page that we'll use throughout the term. You're creating one actual content page within that website, your kind of introduction, about me page. You'll notice that there is an Our Portfolios link in our course menu here, so you can easily access not just your portfolio to look at it, but everyone else in the group too. As I notice them coming up in the discussion board, I add them to our list here. And then there's also the reply component. So you're obviously posting your site URL into our discussion board for Unit 1, and then you're replying to, I think it's 4, you can double check me on that by going into the unit itself, at least 4 other students in terms of what they've posted on their introductions or about me page. And there's lots of really great pages already, some cool pictures that people have posted, lots of interesting info, various reasons that people are taking the course, and kind of life interests and stuff like that. So they're really interesting to read through. And as many folks have done already, I'd encourage you to certainly reply to more than just the bare minimum 4. And then you might also take a moment to look at the discussion board grading. It's kind of a generic rubric for what would define a really great post and a sort of minimal post. So for a Unit 1 type assignment, obviously your main post is just the URL, so there's not a whole lot of grading to that. But clearly for the reply then, I'm looking for something beyond just a sort of single sentence. Even if it's a positive, like cheery sort of greeting, we really do want to develop those replies, because they are our main mode of communication sort of amongst each other within the class. One of my goals when I teach online is that it really feels like a class to you, not just you, the computer, and me as these disembodied pieces that sort of float around each other for 16 or 12 weeks. So there's lots of opportunity for interaction, but again, that's why it's so important that you really kind of develop those both original posts, right, and replies. And again, they don't need to be formal, and I don't grade based on the quality of the writing necessarily. So you can sort of type it like you would talk, but you do want to extend that conversation beyond just a sentence or two. Especially as we move forward, one of the things with really main posts but also replies that I'm looking for is is there evidence of your engagement with the specifics of the course? Whether that's looking at someone's about me page, maybe a text that we've read once we get into the class, whatever material we're doing. It's more than just a generic sort of abstract thing. There's lots of evidence that you are weaving some specifics together from course materials, quoting from maybe a poem that we've read, quoting from somebody else's post if it's a reply. So you're kind of weaving those threads together, and obviously you need to you can't do that in just like a single sentence or sentence and a half. So again, we get into the rhythm of this as we get deeper into the course, and even if you didn't do so great on the reply part this time around, is probably not make or break at this point, because we're just sort of learning the mechanics of the course. Okay. Getting us into Unit 2 then, we get a little bit deeper into the content of our course, but also you'll notice that there's more work to be done. And so keep in mind that we've taken a traditional 16-week course, and it's still 3 credits, so we still sort of have to do all the work, but now we're into the 12-week format. So if you notice that there's a lot more to do in this unit compared to the first one, and as we go forward, it will be more demanding, I think, than that first unit, but understand that there's some practical reasons for that. So, okay, quick note then about the poetry event. Way down in Unit 10 here, you'll have to report on having attended or participated somehow in a poetry event. Please note the poetry events link here in our course menu. You can access the document that will sort of update automatically in our class here. If you happen to see an event listing or a notice about something that you think might fit, you can run it by me. You can just email it to me, or you can post it directly. And so obviously, because not all of this stuff is coming through me, you as the student, if you see something that looks interesting, you'll obviously want to confirm, date, time, location, etc., etc. And if you're not really sure if your event qualifies as a so-called poetry event, again, you can check that with me. We can be a little bit flexible, since I know there's not like poetry readings all over the place every single night. So that's again why I'm drawing your attention to it now, really early in our course, even though it's not something you really have to account for by Unit 10. But if in a month and a half or 2 months or whatever the time frame is here, you tell me, oh, I just couldn't get to something, that's not really going to fly. Okay, finally, Unit 2, I keep promising it, but here we are. A really brief survey, because I'm interested as chair of Lit Creative Writing and Film here at COD, and as the teacher of this course, in why you took it. So there's a quick little survey about some possible reasons that you might have taken it. I tried to think of some of the more common ones. And then there's also a brief short answer place where you can elaborate on some of this, like especially if it's transfer, tell me about that. Is it a particular school? Did that school identify this course in particular that you had to take? Or was this just one of a whole menu of options? Give me a little bit more background. It's really, really valuable information to get so that we as a Lit program can offer classes that people need, or that are in a format that people need or want. If it's personal interest, you can tell me about that. Just give me some more background especially if none of these really apply and there's like a whole different reason that I haven't accounted for. And then the other piece of the puzzle is the format. So we could offer an 1152 in a traditional face-to-face for the 16, a 12-week, a really condensed 8-week. It could be online. Maybe it totally doesn't matter to you. And of course, this term, it was only in that 12-week online format. So I'm asking here, like, you took it this way, but is that just because you needed this course and, oh, well, it happens to be 12-week online, but I'd actually prefer it if it was, and then fill in the blank. Or did the course not really matter to you so much? It was just the 12-week you needed, or you needed something online, or maybe it's a combination of all that stuff. So that's really, again, great information for us to know here as part of the Lit program. So please take a couple minutes and do that survey for us. Okay, we have our first reading here, and also a video. It's not exactly a produced video, just sort of something that someone put together on YouTube. A song/poem, depends how you want to think about it, called Hip Hop by Mos Def. It's a really cool way to start our class, I think. He's one of my I'm not a rap guru by any means, but he's certainly one of my favorites and is really a kind of all-around entertainment person, an artist in many different fields. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do, or actually you can do these sort of together or in parallel. But the first thing listed is a basic poetry terms collaboration. So I could give you a list of terms with the definitions and then do a quiz, but that's like super boring. So what we're going to do instead is we're all going to work together to define a whole laundry list of terms, but you're only having to do 3 of them. And of course you're choosing 3, like it says here, that haven't been defined yet. So the earlier you get in and do this, the wider the choice you have for what you want to define. So we're going to do this in a shared Google, it's actually a slide deck here. So it will display in our class, so you can actually flip through and start to see if anybody has done some definitions yet. But you'll want to click the link to actually access the document. So you'll be in there, you might actually see other people in there too, and then you'll be able to click through and find a term that looks interesting to you, or just grab 3 together, however you want to do it. Clearly one that hasn't got a definition, and then you can just Google it. I mean, I'm not going to be too weird about where you get your definition, but you want to be smart. Don't just put something down that even in your kind of gut says that now that's wrong. And you don't have to come up with something off the top of your head. We want a pretty good definition. You can keep it short, succinct, to the point, but really try to give us some examples too. So if you do allegory, what's a good example of an allegory? Whether it's a kind of classic literary piece or a more contemporary pop culture example. Okay, and again, that first slide, will reiterate the instructions here, and they're given to you here too. So this is set up both as the Google slide to do the definitions, but also write a discussion board. So what's the discussion board part? Your first post will just tell us what 3 terms that you chose to define. You don't have to repeat the definition for us. Just tell us what the terms were. Maybe even why you chose them, but it's really just the terms that we want. But then you are going to reply to at least 2 other posts by looking at the terms that they defined, going into the slide deck and finding out what those definitions were, and sort of like tell us what you learned. So you want to choose a definition or a term that you didn't necessarily know before, or kind of knew generally but weren't sure about an example. So the reply part really isn't to the initial post here, it's to the information that's in the slide deck. And again, as people do this, you'll see it start to fill out. So you don't want to be the last person in there, because then you don't really have a choice about what you're doing. You're just going to have to do the ones that are left over. And I think there's enough in there to cover everybody in our class. Okay, so that's assignment 1. You can get that rolling. And then do also assignment 2 here, pretty much at the same time. That you don't have to do one before the other necessarily. For this assignment, we're going to use a tool called Padlet, which is displayed in our course here, but actually is a website or a tool that I use, and it exists in the browser, and it looks just like this. It's a big blank corkboard, but a digital one right now. Just off my screen on the right, and what you'll see when you pull this up either on your computer or ideally your smartphone is a little plus icon, and that's how you do posts in the Padlet. So what are you posting here? So I emailed out this link, and there is a Padlet app, but you don't have to download it. You don't have to sign up for an account or anything like that. So it's sort of a low barrier to entry. You can just start using the thing. So this is a truly mobile assignment. It's meant to be done on your smartphone as you're out there in your daily life world, doing family stuff, doing school stuff, doing professional stuff, right? That whole ball of wax. And what we're looking for is basically poetry, but I mean literal poetry, not just something that you think is sort of beautiful and poetic. And again, I sort of elaborate this throughout the instructions here. But we want to find where poetry is existing out there, kind of in plain sight, even though we usually think about poetry as this kind of this mixed baggage thing. It's like sort of weird and marginal, but it's also really central to our lives, and nobody really reads it, or at least they don't think they read it, etc., etc. So I'm not going to reread the whole description here. That'll give you a sense of what's going on. But to use Padlet, use this link on your phone, and I emailed it out. It'll go to your student email address, and if you can grab that on your phone, you'll have it clickable there. Or you can just type it into a browser on your phone, and that will take you to basically our corkboard here. When you click the little plus button, or you can double tap, but I find the plus thing works a little bit better. What I'm hoping is that you'll find something, right, some poetry out there as you're walking down a hallway. You'll have your phone, and that will be the moment that you go to the website, right, on your phone, and then take a picture. So when you add your post, it'll actually allow you to use the camera on your phone, and it'll load it right in there. So it's not like you have to take the picture, go find something, and then go back to your computer. If you have tech problems, you can do it that way, but you don't have to do it that way. It's meant to be designed as like a truly mobile, you're out there in the world assignment. You're not sitting at your computer doing it as a one-off thing. So again, it's sort of explained at length here. Hopefully I've walked you through enough of it here so you get how the mechanics of it work. And Padlet is a really great tool. We return to it at least a couple times in our course, but if you're thinking about going into education, learn about Padlet. It's a really fun way of extending the learning of being in the class without like literally being in a class or tethered to a computer. And it has you thinking about my class all the time. So I win. Haha. All right, so this has ended up being longer than I'd wanted, but lots of stuff to walk us through, and I'd prefer it be sort of too much rather than not enough. So as we get into Unit 2, we have the quick survey, a couple minutes of your time, read, listen / watch here, and then you can begin the poetry terms collaboration. That's more of being at the computer assignment. And then the poetry Padlet, you have both of those things on your plate. So main post and work due by the next due date, and I'll pop us in there just to finish up here, by that Wednesday, September 20th, and then any replies Friday, September 22nd. And again, in the 12-week format, slightly condensed, we move a little bit quicker, so really stay on the ball. Be in touch with me if you have any questions, concerns, or tech issues going on, and I will check in with everybody soon.